Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. Today, we have back Ryan Shin with SettLiT. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Very happy to be in another conversation with you, Ken.
Yeah. And so as we tape this interview for the podcast, it's been almost 2 years. Actually, this month will make 2 years, November, when ChatGPT came out and went like gangbusters for the next 180 days or whatever. It was crazy. And things have really developed, and it keeps developing. So I would like, you're a thought leader in this area, and we'll get more into SettLiT later, but I really want to get your take on what you have seen happen, and there's something coming out new every day for lawyers even. I mean, lawyers can use it. I mean, it's just, but you don't know what I'm seeing, Ryan, is our members at Pilma, which ones can we trust? Which ones do we use? I mean, everybody says we're the latest, we're the greatest. But anyway, let's give me what you see has happened, and maybe give us some tips on how to vet these vendors.
Yeah, so I might be a little controversial in my statements here, but I think there's been a shift in the industry where ChatGPT and the development of it has given us far more reach and understanding on how we can develop net new products, apps, functionalities for our day-to-day. For example, with ChatGPT, you're able to do coding. You can start developing. And so much so that I actually created my own personal assistant to help organize my day-to-day, whether it's my emails, my messaging, my messages, people that I need to connect with. That's organized for me every morning as if somebody was working in the background all night. The only difference is I'm not paying that individual. And so it's very creative in the way that you could utilize this. And if you think about that on the firm level, you could start creating the experience that you envision to tackle your administrative work, to tackle the workup process or data aggregation or orchestration or organization. And I think that's incredibly powerful to then embed into those movements, because firms that are adapting and adopting to AI are starting to understand that, number one, like if you're vetting out products, right, and the sole product and functionality of what they offer is AI, then I would say maybe there's a little bit of a red flag there, because depending on how long they've been in existence, how much they've been grounding the data, the science behind whatever instance that they're creating, I think that one is going to be probably more of a flag for me than, let's say, vendors that have an actual product and added an AI layer to it. Right. So
which is what I've seen a lot of people do. I mean, it's on everything. It's in Ring Central. I mean, just every software out there, they're throwing AI in it, I guess, to make it better,
Well, Ken, why do you think that is from your perspective?
Probably because it's more efficient and it's probably cheaper for them, I would think.
You said it. It's cheaper for them, right? Rather than putting a human being in place, rather than hiring and having to go through the whole HR process and onboarding and ramping them up and getting them to do it exactly how you designed it. Yeah, there are these instances where you don't need a human intervention where it can automatically be organized. But when you have a company like Ring Central, who has an established brand, an established service, and they're layering on AI components, well, I'm more of a believer of those instances than creating a net new product that's purely built off of AI. I don't think AI is where it needs to be in order to create a whole functionality of that. I truly believe data is, AI is only as good as the data that you provided, right? And that's why we live in the world that we live, is we supply AI with the necessary data to then compute things like asking if they're qualified for a particular tort, or do they have any pre-existing issues, conditions in their history that are going to impact the settlement amount, like things of that nature. You can start building those layers in and grounding that information, but just let you know, everybody's just starting off in that regard. And there's a very few companies right now that's have been doing this for several years to get this to a place where it's in full functionality. So we're still in the infancy stages of AI, and I think the power of it is just going to increasingly grow. I think more law firms are going to bring in AI architects to create new apps and services and processes internally for themselves in the coming future. And I think that's the smart.
I think, I mean, like I always, at the end of the year for next year, I come up with 5 main things. And one of our things for next year is automate wherever we can.
Yeah.
Because it's going to make it, if you do it right, it's going to make it a better experience for our members. And it's going to, I said, be cheaper for me, right? If you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, it's not just about you, but you can, if you can react to people quicker, give them that experience, that client service, whatever. I think law firms need to do that. You're seeing that a lot with these things like case status. And there's another one, I can't remember the name of it right now. I apologize. But just seeing more and more things like this, and they're slapping some AI on top of that. I mean,
For sure. And let's take case status, for example. You just mentioned them, right? They've added AI layer and components to their product and services. They didn't start off with that, but they've added that. And, do I have a great belief in their product? Yeah, because I actually know the architect of who's building it. And his name is Jay, and he is an absolute genius in developing a generative AI for tools. And he has a world and wealth of experience where he's already applied that in the industry. So like, adding him to the case status component has been phenomenal. And those are things that you want to know. Those are things that you want to see. Who's behind the technology? Because then if you understand those individuals and that they're behind it, I'm like, oh, I'm a believer if that person's developing it. So.
And the thing is, like our marketing director, she uses AI all the time in marketing. I mean, in all different types of, I mean, we don't just use the content, but we use it in getting ideas on what content to write.
Yep.
And do videos and cut up videos. And I mean, it's powerful. I mean,
Ken, I think in the next 6 months, we're going to have the ability to just type out a video that we want to be produced, and it'll happen. Whatever you type out, that video will be created. So if you think about marketing on that level and being able to create a whole production just from your computer and all your promo videos, you're not worrying about licensing or getting, rights for images or things of that nature. It's all being created net new. And so soon the world will have that ability. What does that say for the way you do market your firm? You market PILMA, you market, you're putting out content, whether it's on LinkedIn, Instagram, X. The world is changing quickly, and it's not slowing down for anyone. And this is where I'm encouraging almost everybody that I come across in the legal industry. Hey, if you haven't started, start, right? And it's as simple as creating a free account on ChatGPT, taking email messages, putting in there, write it better, taking Excel spreadsheets and like, hey, what am I missing and when I'm crunching these numbers? And like, it gives you another brain, it gives you another line of sight, but also adds to your creativity. And I think that is something that has been maybe desensitized because people are so embedded into their process and they've been doing it for 12, 15 years. They know exactly how to do it. But what if the whole healthcare industry changes? What if, the marketing industry changes? What ends up happening is then there's a gap of knowledge. And then it kind of like bleeds into this like ongoing cycle of being tech averse, automation averse. And it's like, no, it's good.
I had somebody on the podcast yesterday, and he's talking it's going to change the way people do search when they're trying to find something, that instead of just, the discrete where you just punch in and then, it's back and forth, I want food near me. Well, here's some restaurants. Well, let me see this one, da, da, da. Here's the reviews. No, you say, oh, I need, I'm hungry. I need some food and I like this and this. And then they'll say, well, do you like this? Do you like that? Then they'll come there and say, this is one way you can do it. Here's the pros, here's the con. It's going to be more like a conversation of talking to somebody in your living room that's like an expert on any damn thing you want to talk about.
Yeah.
That's going to change. I think Google's in for some wide, I guess that's why they're trying to get it too, but it's going to change things, I think, after listening.
ChatGPT recently announced they're going to be putting out a search function to compete with Google. But for, let's say, the last 4 decades or 3 decades, who has ever been able to compete against Google? We were all Googling everything and anything. And now we have a evolutionized way of searching where it's far more tailored to our liking, and we can train it. We can train the thing to, it doesn't have to be in accordance to Google's algorithm. It can be in accordance to our algorithm. And that says a lot, right? And that gives a heck of a lot more power, but also in the spirit of creativity too. You just mentioned, instead of saying, hey, like what restaurants are near me, it's like, hey, suggest me restaurants in my neighborhood. I'm feeling for Italian. And able to then go and do the work for you, right? And so it's not a world-defining decision where it's like it's dependent on a massive settlement or anything. But if you take all your day-to-day instances of the paperwork, of the data collection, every bit of that motion of your upfront process and all the administrative work that goes into it, and we sprinkle AI throughout that, how much more efficiency does that create? How much more synergy does it create between the departments as you go from intake to a case manager to a paralegal to an attorney?
Yeah, it's crazy. And listen, I think you hit on something real big. If you're not in it, you need to be playing with it at least. I mean, listen, I don't even know how to, I'm 68 years, I don't even know how to type. I'm in it not every day, but when I got something like, I put something this morning, I said, I want to take 7 days and drive from Myrtle Beach to Denver in the end of April next year, because that's when our summit is. And I want to see some nice architecture and old buildings and history. Map me out, my route and where I should stay, and find me some good hotel. And it did it. What I'm saying is, and I had to refine it some, but the deal is, it's like you say, I mean, if you can get this thing, where's the biggest leakage right now? The biggest leakage in law firms I see, Ryan, is intake. Okay. And I'm seeing a lot of different people do a lot of different things with it. One thing I'll come back to this. So I was at an event, earlier this month, and this guy that owns Sweet James, I cannot remember it. Sure, you know him? Mm-hmm. Very bright lawyer, really utilizing AI, but he's using it to evaluate the worth of law firms that he's going to buy. He throws all their data in it and can say, this is what their average fees are, this is how long it takes to do it, da. With that data, he's coming up with what is a fair price for that law firm. I thought that blew my mind. Okay, that blew my mind. I said, that is ingenious. Because, if they've got the data, which goes back to what I've always preached, is you got to really have your systems and know your numbers and KPIs and all that, so that you need to run it like you're going to sell it one day, whether you ever sell it or not. Because when you do that, it's more valuable and it's going to run smoother.
And this is where I talk about first step. What's the step before AI? Data, right? It's the data that you collect, the data that you have, the data that has been existing into your case management system or your spreadsheets or your files, whatever process that your law firm has. Hopefully it's all built into a management system. And that the data is being aggregated and orchestrated in a way that it's easy to have those outputs of, what are the client fees and on the averages. And I think data and the way you house data, the way you aggregate the data, to orchestrate the data is going to be incredibly powerful to then how you utilize AI. And this first step is always going to be the data. So if you don't have the data organized, what good is AI? All it's going to do is give you the outputs in accordance to the disorganization that you have within the data. So it's like, that's first step, is how do we get all the data into the right places so that you can create your outputs to then understand how to layer AI. And this is why our organization is incredibly powerful. Most people have an AI layer to their product, but they don't have the data. So the data is relied upon for the law firm to retrieve the record, retrieve the police report, whatever it may be, to then feed the AI with the data, where we get to supply the data, add the AI layer on top of it to normalize the data, and then push that forward in real time. So this is where there's going to be a shift in understanding on where you can layer AI. Well, where can you layer AI? We'll get to know your data first. And that's going to give you every indicator of where you need to focus on.
Yeah, they'll say in, junk out, So, in so many companies that sprung up in the last 18 months, whatever, 2 years. And I see some of them fall by the wayside, and I see some of them adapt and trying to find their place and what, I call it from a market standpoint, what is their differentiator? Why should you hire that company? So tell me what SettLiT's, the company that you helped found, what have y'all been doing? Because, it's been probably close to a year since I interviewed you last. Tell me what's going on, man.
Yeah, we are making moves in a way where we're trying to, we have been changing the psychology of the industry. And because there's never been real-time access to healthcare, there hasn't been a motion where the people use digital data to make determinations towards viability or compensability or qualified or disqualified. And so we have to work really hard on changing the psychology of the way the law firm functions up front. And we just talked about intake. And yeah, I do see a lot of problems with intake because there isn't a one shoe fits all type of methodology. And it's plagued with a lot of manual processes. It's heavily reliant on the client story, where they provide you the first few pieces of the puzzle, and then you're trying to collect the rest of the puzzle. And it's just broken in the sense of you can only ask questions 10, 20 different type of ways, but truly data is what's going to support that function of truly understanding what they've been through historically up until real time. And what we tackle is this 1-year workup process of getting a retainer signed, to gathering evidence, to then reviewing the evidence, to then formulate a decision. That usually is taking 1 year. And we've now taken that to a 72-hour process. We first start off with our pre-qualification tool. It's all just digital data points. But if you think about it in the mass tort side, and let's say they got impacted by, let's say, Roundup, the qualifying diagnosis for that is non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And you could have 1,000 people saying that they were diagnosed with NHL, but was everybody diagnosed with NHL? Some of them were diagnosed with Hodgkin lymphoma. Some of them had a resemblance of it, but not quite the diagnosis. And so now you're trying to request for 1,000 records to identify whether they're qualified or not. And we said, what? That's a lot of money spent. That's a lot of hands raised saying that they have this issue. There has to be a better and a more efficient way. This is where the real-time data access comes in. So now click a button, wait 5 minutes, and look for the proof of injury, the proof of use, or pre-existing, if you're on the single event side, pre-existing conditions that maybe they had a severe lumbar disc disorder, and the day of the accident they had a high severity spinal cord injury. That could be an exacerbation case, but normally you're requesting for multiple records to identify those issues. Well, now just click a button, wait 5 minutes, and data will come in, and you'll be able to see those items of indicating diagnosis, procedures, tests, scans, medications, dosage amounts, psych issues, and be able to properly support your clients through data, but not like 30, 60, 90 days down the line. We're talking about within the day of getting a retainer signed. So what does that say for your intake, right? Now you're understanding the viability of a case, the compensability of a case, and you can also further determine the value of the case, but you're not waiting. So that's the importance of this. That's our pre-qualification tool.
Hey, Ryan, so I'm thinking, I mean, I asked this, it's probably going to sound stupid, but I'm not a techie.
No.
So is it possible to set up AI to go out and in the jurisdictions that'll let you get the actual reports?
No. AI has nothing to do with the way we obtain our data. We have direct data access. So we've taken our API, our technology, and we plugged it into databases directly right across the country. So there's no AI, that's all technology. Now, where we utilize AI is when you get this information back, sometimes you're getting 10, 15 years worth of data of their health history, right? That could be a lot of information to go through. So we use AI so you can ask the data questions. Does this individual qualify for the Roundup litigation? And it'll pull in all the injuries associated to the Roundup if it's found in their history right into a single explanation, therefore fast tracking your ability to review the information, apply it, and find the source of where it's being mentioned almost instantaneously. On the mass tort side, we only add AI layers, right? And we grounded it in a closed environment within our data. And that's it. Once we retrieve the data, then AI can be used as part of our service, because we have a whole toolbox of tools that you can use to identify the information, or even take an electronic record that we obtained within 24 to 48 hours and structure that information into our data viewer. That's just as valuable, because instead of knocking off the lid off the highlighter, opening up the first page and reading everything, we want to take you right to the information that you're most interested in. So we've built in configurations for the criterias of every tort, whether you're doing Depo-Provera to Roundup to Cap Lejeune. We built the science and the data right into our tools so that you just have to click on the particular tort, and only the injuries applicable to that tort will show up, and then you can add a AI function and asking questions towards that data.
I'm not running a law firm now, but if I was running a law firm, I think the big deal I would look at, I would really examine where all my pain points are, or where all my obstacles, or whatever you want to call it, the clog in the pipeline. And I'd want to go try to figure out how I can either use technology or AI to smooth that out and make it run more efficient. And I think that's what a lot of you guys are doing. You're going to these law firms. Where can we help you? What's your big problem? And then you try to figure out how to solve it, right?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's easy. Almost the whole industry has a problem with getting records and getting them in time, and then not paying an arm and a leg for those records. And I think it's not so much a problem with the legal industry. It's just how the healthcare industry is set up. And as a result, the legal industry pays a consequence of it. But, what we're doing on the SettLiT side is we're actually connecting the two. So while we connect into the healthcare industry, we're providing channels to gain access to this information, have that delivered to you in speeds that are just never been in place. So we're speaking towards a large need. We're not going to law firms saying, how could we help you? We already go to law firms knowing that there's already an issue. And instead of saying, how could we help you? We go to them saying, how could we innovate together to find a place where you're satisfied that you're avoiding taking on cases that you should never be taking on in the first place, or being able to unclog the wheel within your firm to understand where are all your opportunities, even within your existing caseload, right? Because There's all these now referral platforms out there, like Lexamico or Attorney Share, that you're able to then like be able to get mailbox money for. But a lot of people actually don't do a deep dive into their existing cases. They don't do a deep
Yeah.
dive, and it's almost a forgotten path. And that's what we're trying to reignite. Is we go into a firm, be like, well, how many no records found do you have? Oh, you have 30%. Great, give us that 30%. We're going to find those providers. Let's look for them. What's that going to mean for your case? Well, that I'll be able to send off a demand, or I'll be able to, go into litigation. Fantastic.
Yeah, I like the pre-qualifier because a lot of firms, it takes them up to 4 to 6 weeks to figure out that they want to dump this case, and think about the manpower, the man hours or woman hours, whatever you call it. Anyway, the hours spent on that. And that means you got to hire more help, this, that, clogging that system. If you can shorten that to 72 hours or even a week, I mean, the bigger you are, the more it's just a massive amount of savings, I would think, especially for mass tort firms. I mean, it's unbelievable.
We now know, right? Like, we've been in the market for 2 years now. We now know everybody that started with us 2 years ago are reaping the benefits 10 times over. It's required a lot less human resources. It's required a lot less guesswork. There's a hell of a lot more accuracy up front. Because one of the first things that we provide you is a provider list. A list of providers of where they visited, who they visited, their physician that they visited, their specialty, their facility address, phone number, fax line, taxonomy. And like, imagine intaking someone, asking them where they've been, which I think we all know we're not dealing with the greatest historians. So as a result, you're probably getting a 10, 15% of the pie of visibility into where they've been.
Right.
And now imagine getting a retainer sign, clicking a button, and say, hey, let me walk you down through this list. You look like you went to this hospital and saw Dr. Shin. I totally forgot. Yes, I did. That was for my back injury. Oh, you never mentioned a back injury. Let's talk about that. That might impact the case. And what we're trying to do is flesh these things out a heck of a lot quicker. A lot of people that are heavy litigators, they file a lot of suit to go into litigation. They started using us before they filed suit because they wanted to know. And the amount of times we uncovered prior accidents, we uncovered 7 ER visits within the last year, like things that were really going to be brought up in a deposition where they're going to get caught flat-footed. And we say, no more. You have real access to real-time information. You can prepare yourselves for these types of meetings.
So you're saying in the next 6 months, you think things are even going to go more? I mean, there'll be a lot more changes, right?
I think in the next 2 years, we call it month by month. I think there's going to be more and more upgrades with AI, more abilities given. Like, quite literally, I have a friend that's created 3 apps that are fully functional right now. And there's a level of knowledge that you still need to have in order to do those things, but it's not hard, right? And I'm not a developer. I am not a programmer. But yet I've been able to develop and program my own apps just by telling the AI what to do. And that's my encouragement to everybody in the industry is like, hey, don't ignore this even temporarily, because this thing is advancing so much that if you miss the mark and you have to start learning from scratch, even 6 months from now, you're already late, because I know there's firms right now that are really sinking their teeth and understanding how to utilize this and embed this within their firm. They're hiring people specifically. And I said this I saw the first instance of it when we first discussed. I was like, yeah, I've been running across law firms that are hiring AI specific engineers for the firm. And now I'm seeing a hell of a lot more of that right across the industry starting to take place.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. It's going to matter. It's inevitable.
Well, yeah. Any parting words? And if somebody wants to know more about SettLiT and what y'all do to get these records in quick.
Again, we're changing the psychology of the industry. There's been, legal workup services, mass tort firms, personal injury firms that have taken our data and innovated with it, whether it's in their pre-discovery on the personal injury side or whether it's right upon the intake on the mass tort side. nonetheless, consider us like the AI wave. And as much as AI's now coming into the light of the industry, before that, though, there's a data revolution taking place. And that's probably more important because without data, you don't really have useful functionality with AI. So really, I challenge everybody, what does it look like to have real-time information right up front to uncover 70 to 80% visibility right up front on a particular claimant? How does that function then change the way you work the case up thereafter? So I invite you, reach out to me. SettLiT.legal is our website. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, Ryan Shin. I'm not really hard to find. I'm at conferences and I'm a bit of a character, but there's lots of ways you guys can reach out to me.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And we'll get back together again in 6 months or a year and see where we got now then. All right. I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays, and all of you out there too the same. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.